Welcome to Great Aspirations, Wealthspire Advisors podcast series on life, wellness, and financial advice. Each episode shares the experiences of extraordinary people whose stories inspire others to think big, find balance, and explore the possibilities of achieving health, wealth, and happiness. And now, here's your host, the CEO of Wealthspire Advisors, Michael LaMena.
Welcome to Great Aspirations. I'm Mike LaMena, CEO of Wealthspire, and I'm grateful you're joining us for the start of Season 4. This season is centered on a simple but powerful idea, the power of giving. At Wealthspire, we talk often about success, growth, opportunity, wealth, but we believe true wealth is measured by something deeper. It's not just about dollar signs, balance sheets, assets, investment returns. It's measured by the impact we have on others, by the lives we touch, by what we choose to give back, how we choose to give back, and why we give back. Over the course of this season, you'll hear stories from athletes, philanthropists, community and business leaders who are living that belief every day. People who remind us that generosity doesn't always look the same, but it always starts with purpose. Sometimes it shows up in giving time. Sometimes it's mentorship. Sometimes it's leadership, empathy, or the courage to turn personal success into shared opportunity. We couldn't imagine a better way to open this season than with today's guest, Harris English, a PGA Tour golfer who over the course of his very successful career has earned 5 PGA Tour wins, played in over 360 events, and last year in particular was just a thrilling one to watch Harris do what he does. Unbelievable year for Harris. It started with a PGA Tour title win at the Farmers Open in January. The first since I think you became a father, I've learned. That's something we'll talk about. I'm a father of 3 daughters, so I'm sure we'll hit on that at some point in the conversation. He placed second at the PGA Championship in Quail Hollow and also finished second at the British Open, where he finished 13 under. Harris also made the prestigious Ryder Cup for the second time, which is something I'm sure we'll talk about, competing for the U.S. in just an unbelievable event at Bethpage last year. In addition to the incredible momentum Harris is experiencing professionally, he's also someone who understands that opportunity changes lives. Through both the PGA Tour's giving programs and his own foundation, Harris is giving back and impacting lives at every tour stop and in numerous ways. In this conversation, we'll talk about where that commitment comes from, how success and perspective brings responsibility, and why giving back is something that shapes who you become along the way. So Harris, without further ado, let's get started. Really excited for the conversation today. Welcome to Great Aspirations.
I appreciate it, Mike. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to having a good conversation with you, and hopefully we'll learn a little bit more about me as a golfer and a human and a father, and looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, I think that's the objective. So Harris, you built an incredible career on the PGA Tour, and for so many fans who've watched you compete on stages like the Ryder Cup and major tournaments like last year where you had a lot of success, I'm sure there's individual things that stand out for fans of yours. But when you look back on the journey you've been on as a professional athlete and a PGA Tour golfer, what are the moments that stand out for you as defining, pivotal, significant?
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what I've wanted to be doing since I was probably 11 or 12 years old. Growing up watching guys like Davis Love, Freddie Couples, and Tiger Woods was kind of making his run in the late 90s when I was growing up, and I watched those guys on TV, and it's like that's what I want to be doing when I grow up. Obviously, you just see those guys on Saturday and Sunday on the leaderboard and coming down the stretch trying to win tournaments, but you don't see kind of their lives of how did they get to that point? What do they do Monday through Wednesday of prepping for a tournament? How do they travel to tournaments? What do they do with their families? So there's a lot more that goes into that and stuff that I've learned throughout the years. I mean, this is going to be my 15th year, starting out next week at the Amex of being on the PGA Tour. So I've been through a lot. I've grown a lot professionally and personally. I became a father. I've got a 2.5-year-old daughter. Um, got married almost 9 years ago. So things change and your life changes a little bit. But that ultimate goal of playing on the PGA Tour and competing on the PGA Tour has never been greater. And kind of my heart and my soul of this is what I was meant to do, and I'm going to do this for as long as I can.
I love that. I'm a little bit jealous. Angie and I have talked to our head of marketing in the past around. I never had that absolute clarity in what I wanted to do at a young age. I always saw a multiplicity of opportunities. So it intrigues me when I intersect with somebody that had that clarity and then just went down the path and did the work, right? And I know it creates a tremendous amount of work. So, 5 PGA Tour wins, incredibly strong showings at some of the sport's biggest stages, major tournaments, participating in the Ryder Cup. Exciting to watch. Great to see you play. It's interesting to me that in descriptions of your style, the approach, the way you show up as a golfer, words like consistent, focused, balanced, calm, unflappable, those are the things that come up. Talk to me about that. Is that how you think of yourself on the course? Is it, how you carry yourself, outside? I tend to, as a leader, think one of my attributes, I never get too high, I never get too low. There's a consistency. So maybe a little bit of insight into maybe how you're perceived and how you think about yourself as a golfer and beyond the ropes.
Yeah, I think being consistent like that is key. Not just for everybody else, but it's huge for me. I mean, growing up, I would say I wasn't always like that when I was a young kid on the golf course. I had a bit of a temper. And when my mom, especially, would watch me play golf, she would get very upset when I would act out or throw a club or do something dumb on the golf course. And she would walk off a couple times on the course, and that was her biggest thing. Like it wasn't how I played; it was how I acted, how I carried myself, and she kind of instilled that in me of it doesn't matter how good you do, you've gotta be a good person, hold yourself high. So I kind of took that to heart, and like I've got to change. I had some really good mentors, I guess, of watching TV, like I mentioned earlier, Davis Love, Fred Couples. When I would watch them on TV, I mean, you had no idea if they had just made a double bogey or made an eagle or they're winning the tournament or they're in last place, and that's kind of how I modeled my game after of kind of how I act on the golf course of be that unflappable golfer, be that person who is super consistent with the way they act. Because we all care out there. We all are super competitive. We all want to win, and it's not going to go your way all the time. You're going to hit bad shots. You're going to get bad breaks. Um, so it's how you perceive those things that happen to you and how you react to it is helps you get through the round, get through the tournaments, and I've been working on that a lot. I mean, it's not something that comes very easily, but it's something I work on a lot, and through my goal setting, through the way I want to kind of be remembered. I mean, I'm 36 years old now. Um, I feel like I'm at the peak of my golf career, but I know kind of. I mean, this is my 15th year, so I know I probably don't have 15 more years of super competitive golf. So I've got to make the best of it right now, and especially these last few years is just having a good bit of perspective, a good bit of gratitude of where I am in life. I'm doing exactly what I've want to be doing for a long time. I love competing. I love traveling, playing on the PGA Tour, and I've just got to enjoy it the most I can right now.
Well, I think I appreciate that maturation, that journey you've been on. Great counsel from, your mom in terms of how you conduct yourself on the course and those values. Um, I think Father Time is undefeated. So like you're at the pinnacle of your golf career, you feel incredibly competitive, but you have to have that perspective on the journey you've been on to get to this point and know that it won't persist forever. So great perspective. Let me ask a little bit about the Ryder Cup because you talk about that steady, consistent. How do you take some of the emotion out of it and really be unflappable? The Ryder Cup is just it's a different animal, right? When you think about the emotion, the U.S. versus Europe, and all that. Talk to me a little bit about your experiences. You've played twice, Beth Page last year. What is that like? Because not only and I think this is a little bit unique to golf. Like you're competing against the entire field on a week to week basis, right? You have to control what you do, but you're also competing against the entire field. Then you get dropped into something like the Ryder Cup, and there's a team aspect to it. You're playing for something beyond just you. So, love to get your perspective on what that experience with the Ryder Cup's been like, and what it's kind of talk to you about, like doing competing for something beyond just yourself in that team environment.
Yeah, I mean, both Ryder Cups have been incredible. Obviously, playing for Captain Steve Stricker at Whistling Straits back in 2021. He's been a big mentor for me when I first came out on the PGA Tour. I respect him not only as a golfer, but one of the best humans I've ever met in my life. A great father to his two daughters. Somebody who I kind of wanted to model my game after, and he's just an unbelievable person. And that was my first experience playing the Ryder Cup. I'd played the Walker Cup before, which is the amateur version of the Ryder Cup back in 2011, and had a great experience. But yeah, I mean, you play on the PGA Tour all year. You play in the majors 25 to 28 weeks a year, and then you kind of get dropped in this team event where it's not just what you can control. Like I have a system, and I have my certain habits that I do every single tournament, and now here you are paired up with different guys, and you got to gel, and you got to match, and you got to be a great teammate, which I love. Like that's what I miss about playing team sports, basketball, football, soccer, baseball. Is you're always on a team, and golf is such an individual sport that you kind of get in your own little world. But that's what
So
makes the Ryder
did,
Cup.
did did you did you play multiple sports as a kid before you kind of focused in on golf?
I did, I did.
Oh,
I
that's
played,
awesome.
I played every sport I could. I mean, I love football. I broke my arm playing football when I was like 11, and my mom was like, "I don't know if you need to keep playing football." But
I feel like
basketball and
there's so
soccer,
much pressure at a young age for kids to specialize, and the reality is like having a diversity of athletic experiences is I think good, right? Before you kind of focus in on a lot of kids burn out, different things. So that's awesome to hear that you did multiple things for a period of time.
yeah, yeah, and with my daughter and future kids that we may have, and I'm going to make sure they play as many sports as they can, and then you can figure out if you want to concentrate on one sport later when you're 14 or 15. But I think it was big for me to play everything, and like you said, not burn out. But it gives you a good perspective of how to be a good teammate, and there's a lot of values that you can learn from that. But yeah, I mean, playing this past year with I was paired up with Colin Morikawa, a good friend of mine. I've enjoyed watching his career. He's a good bit younger than me, but you get paired up in an alternate shot, which I don't play a whole lot of personally, and that is the true team golf experience. Of you've got to have complete trust in the other guy. You've got to lean on them,
There's
and
got to be a sense of loss of control, right?
it
Normally, it's like
is.
you could. Oh, that's wild. That's
It
really
is, it is,
interesting.
but that's what makes it so great. And you do all the prep. We play golf together a lot. You kind of have the same strategy, but once you get thrown in the fire, and um, you don't know what's going to happen, and you definitely have some adversity, and we had some adversity playing against Rory and Tommy Fleetwood, probably Europe's best alternate shot pairing. Um, we played fine. We didn't play great. We didn't make the big putts that we needed to make. Rory and Tommy played great. They were hard to beat, but I had awesome experience playing with Colin. He picked me up when he needed to. I picked him up when I needed to. You just learn a lot about the other person once you get thrown in the fire like that, playing on the stage of a Ryder Cup. That it's not about yourself. It's about those other guys. It's about playing for Captain Keegan Bradley. It's about playing for your country. For me, I just had a ton of gratitude that week. I know how hard it is to make those teams. I mean, I've been playing for 15 years, and that's the second Ryder Cup I've made, which is awesome. But you never know if that's going to be your last one that you play in. So you got to soak it all in. There's a lot of build up for that week, and then it seems like the tournament goes by so fast. I mean, you're waking
Yeah.
up at 4 o'clock in the morning. You're staying at the golf course until the last putt drops, which is probably 6 p.m. So you're out there all day. Go back to the hotel, do it all again, and then you blink and it's kind of all over. And it's just an awesome experience, and I hope I get a few more of those before my career is done. And hopefully we can bring that Ryder Cup back to the U.S.
Sounds good. Appreciate that. So you've used the word gratitude a couple times. I want to put a pin in that, but before we get there, one of the things that always strikes me is for someone like you, as an elite athlete, like there is a constant tension between what's required to achieve the level of excellence required to just be on the PGA Tour, let alone have the success you've had. So as you've kind of navigated 15 years on the tour as a golfer and have the level of success, how do you strike that balance between the focus and the necessity to really dedicate time, energy, the grind relative to pursuing a level of excellence required with kind of other areas of your life? You mentioned just becoming a father. I'm in a different world, it's the business world, but there's that constant tension between the demands of a high intensity job and the other things you want in life. And when I think about an athlete, I mean, you're on the road, there's a grind, it's practice. How have you kind of navigated that as you have evolved over the course of your career?
Yeah, it is a constant battle of finding that balance. I mean, I'm very lucky. My family travels with me a good bit. That's the way I want it. I want to have um, my life outside of golf, outside the ropes, as normal as possible. And I'm lucky. My wife is a rock star. She loves to travel. Um, she kind of takes care of everything outside the ropes, and really understands that for me to be the best at what I do, for us to continue to kind of have this life of playing the PGA Tour, like there's certain habits, there's certain systems that I have to do to keep my golf in a good spot, and trying to grow, trying to get better, trying to reach that number one in the world, try to make more Ryder Cup teams, win major championships, like all of the stuff is on my radar of trying to achieve. And yeah, I love them. I love them traveling because I mean, traveling 25 or 28 weeks a year, for them to be at home and us to have separate lives will be tough, because we're on the road for 3 or 4 weeks at a time, and it can be a grind. It can get lonely when your family doesn't travel with you. So I love them traveling. I love coming home from the golf course and playing with my daughter, and for her not to have any idea of how I played, or she doesn't know me as a PGA Tour player. She knows me as dad, and I love to get on the floor and play with her and read
That's
books and
awesome.
all that stuff. So I love having that balance, and it really helps me decompress from the golf and the grind and the intensity and the pressure that's kind of wrapped up inside the ropes, and it really helps me decompress from that.
That's awesome. So, clearly you have that broader perspective, and the theme of this season of the Great Aspirations podcast is around giving. And, when I think about the way you just described finding that balance, I know through the PGA Tours giving programs, through the establishment of your own foundation, you're clearly somebody that has a desire to give back. And you use that word gratitude. I think, it's very clear that you're appreciative of the position you've been in and all the people that have contributed to that. when you think about like what it means to give back, at this stage of your career and how that's evolved and what you want to do in the future, maybe talk to me a little bit about the journey. Like, where did that seed to set up a foundation? Where did the seed of getting involved in some of the philanthropic things you're involved in? Where did that start? How's it evolved? And more importantly, where do you want it to go in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. It definitely has evolved. I mean, I grew up in a really small town, kind of in Southwest Georgia. We had one small country club, um, very modest country club. But I was very fortunate that my dad was a member and would bring me out there to the golf course, and I had a good group of friends from soccer and basketball and football and whatnot, that we would all go out there in the summer and practice and play. But um, for me, my passion is kids and to help that next generation to succeed. And for me growing up, I didn't have a whole lot of I didn't have any PGA Tour guys that grew up in the same area that I grew up in, and for me, looking at it now of how cool it is for me to be on the PGA Tour and to go back home and spend a lot of time with these kids and kind of show them like, hey, I made it to the PGA Tour from here. Like, there's no reason why y'all all can't make it. Like, if I can do it, all of you can do it. And for me to help their path be as easy as possible, to be easier than my path. So whatever I can do to help them with anything they need and to get into play college golf, to whatever path they want to get on, for me to help out with that. And I feel like I'm gonna have a platform now and to help that as much as possible. So, and playing the PGA Tour, like my first win was at the St. Jude Classic in Memphis, Tennessee, and I didn't know a whole lot. I mean, I was probably 23 years old. I didn't know a whole lot about what St. Jude really was. I had obviously seen the commercials on TV. I knew the name, but I had never been to the hospital before. And the next year, I think 2014, I went to the hospital before the tournament, and I mean, you talk about perspective. That definitely puts you in check of seeing those kids and what they're going through, battling cancer, and um, it makes you realize that a bad shot on the golf course, a bad day on the golf course, really means nothing. I mean, these kids kind of have a whole life in front of them, and it's kind of put to a stop of what they're battling, and seeing that at a young age, and realizing that there's more to life than just what's happening on the golf course. And there's a lot of kids, there's a lot of people that need our help, and having a platform like I have on the PGA Tour, I feel like I've set myself up in a position to help out as much as possible.
Look, I think that's fantastic. And, I mean, two very different paths to like how you express giving, right? One is your journey and how do you help others like know what's possible, right? Bridge that gap from like, I don't see how that's a reality that could be there for me. And to spend individual time exposing kids to the journey you've been on is fantastic. And then as we talked about, like as a golfer, a very successful golfer, you need to kind of lock in, put the blinders on when you're inside the ropes and be in that moment and block everything out. But the actual perspective, and you use the word gratitude, being grateful for that opportunity in the context of other things like kids battling cancer. I mean, clearly for you, that's motivated you to say, I have a platform. How can I maximize that. So when you think about the foundation and the future, are there other things that really get you excited about what you can do? I mean, again, you're incredibly visible. I know you're deeply appreciative of the opportunities you have. Are there other things in the future that kind of based upon the stuff you're doing are real important to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's just really growing junior golf, around the world, but where I can really help is kind of in my area of South Georgia, Southwest Georgia, of growing the game as much as possible. All the values that you learn from playing golf. It doesn't matter what skill level you're at, of just getting kids on the golf course and meeting people, and when you're playing around the golf for hopefully 4 hours, you're having a lot of conversations. You get to play in a lot of pro-ams like we do on the PGA Tour. You get to meet a lot of people that you wouldn't normally meet. And I think there's a lot of values that can be learned from the game of golf, of being self-policing, of if you accidentally move your ball, or you keeping your own score.
It's definitely a game steeped in values,
It,
right?
it is, growing up, you didn't really realize that, but now as I've gotten older, of how much this game has taught me, um, about myself, and how to treat people, and how to enjoy other people's company out on the golf course. I mean, that's what it's all about. And the more I can get kids on the golf course, the more I can help them to maybe get college scholarships, to continue their path, whatever it may be, in the game of golf. That's what I want to do. I mean, my passion is golf. That's what I've done pretty much my whole life. So, to be out there and give clinics, and maybe start a junior tour in South Georgia, or take over another junior tour, and help it be better than when I was there, 20 years ago. So those are things I've been thinking about, kind of down the road, and I think it's coming pretty fast, of how I want to be remembered, and how I want to, help the game of golf, that's given so much to me. How can I give back, and make it as good as possible?
That's fantastic. I mean, it's very clear to me that you feel the responsibility as an athlete, as a visible athlete, to carry yourself in a way that sets an example. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, I had some great mentors growing up, and I want to be a mentor, and somebody that people can look up to, and model their game after, or model their life after. I want to be that guy, and it's really cool for me. There's a couple young kids from where I grew up in South Georgia. One is a freshman at Georgia right now, had a great start to his freshman year, and then another kid is a senior in high school who just won the U.S. Amateur, Mason Howell. So it's cool. I've known those kids since they were 9 or 10 years old. I do a junior tournament in Thomasville, Georgia, where I grew up. So it's cool. I know I didn't have a huge part in their success, but really just to show them, if I did it, they can do it, and they're doing it better than I did when I was a kid. So it's really cool for me to see, and I take pride in following their career, and texting with them, and helping them out as much as possible. So it's cool to see that, and seeing that next generation grow up and get better, and continue, and do things better than I did. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, look, I see the joy in your face when you talk about being able to kind of share and offer up guidance and perspective, for folks, so that they have some visibility into the path that you went down. So that's really impactful. You use the word legacy. How do you think about legacy? Your legacy as a player, your legacy through some of the things you're doing philanthropically. I mean, I start to hear that as you get a little bit older, like, you have that perspective that, like, you almost need to be laser focused early on, and put the blinders on. It's me. I need to have the success. But as you kind of broaden the lens, it feels like you really have a perspective that says it's bigger than me, and there's ways that I can have impact individually with a person, in communities, through my role as an athlete, like, after my time on the tour is done. How do you think about legacy through those dimensions?
Yeah, I mean, I know my time as a competitive golfer is going to end at some point, and how am I going to,
All the
what,
times
like,
undefeated, right?
yeah, Father Time's undefeated. Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to be remembered? How can I make the most impact, outside of golf? Because I mean, yeah, you have the resume, you have the wins, you have the teams you make, but really, does that matter that much? Like, that doesn't. fill my bucket all the way. And I think these other avenues of what I'm learning is putting a smile on people's faces, being around a lot of these kids and helping them as much as possible. Like that fills my bucket of um, kind of my heart, my soul. Like that's
It
gets me
feels
up.
to me like the competitive success, financial success. That's not the destination, that's the beginning. Because if it gives you the platform to do the things like you've talked passionately about, like that's really what it's about. The ripple impact you have through the success that enables you to kind of have that impact. Is that fair?
That is very fair. Yeah, like my bank account doesn't define me. My PGA Tour career doesn't define me. Like I said, it doesn't fill my bucket. I've learned that. I mean, starting out early on the PGA Tour, I thought if you win 10 times, if you make these Ryder Cup teams, like that's what it's all about. And I've kind of learned throughout the years like that. I've done those things, and it's not what it's about. Um, and me
You,
going to
you,
these projects
you,
and these charity events and the other stuff, like that's what it's all about. Like that ultimately leaves me fulfilled of I've kind of done my duty. I've done my role of where God put me in this kind of on earth is like I'm trying to help the next generation. I'm trying to help other people. That's kind of my fulfilling role in life.
That's awesome. And I know you shared your daughter. Your daughter doesn't care about, your success on the PGA Tour. She doesn't even know you're a golfer. I found personally like becoming a father is incredibly grounding, and it shifts your perspective because again, it's not about any success you've achieved, externally. It's just about your dad, right? And
Mhm.
that grounding really kind of gives you a broader perspective relative to what's most important.
Yeah, I want to take her on a lot of these journeys and seeing kind of the other
Yeah.
side because she's grown up um, with a lot more things than I did. I grew up in a really small town off a dirt road. Like she's not doing that. But I want her to see that there's life outside of this bubble. There's a lot more people outside of this bubble that we live in, and to get her to have that same perspective and to see all those different things that I've seen and to kind of come with me on this journey and hopefully it'll instill in her and help her on her journey of learning what she wants to do in life and I want to be there 100% on whatever she chooses. That's what I want to put my time into and my effort of helping her fulfill her goals and her dreams. But to have that perspective of um, there's a whole world out there. There's a lot of people that need help and are not growing up like she's growing up right now.
That's a great perspective, and you're clearly successful as a father, just like you are within the ropes as a golfer. So thank you for that, Harris. Um, what advice would you give to others that have this spark of desire to give back, have a philanthropic desire, are kind of locked in on doing what they need to do to drive success, but also kind of when they feel that spark, like what advice would you give to them to get started and to start on the journey and the path you've been on to have impact beyond what you do as a professional athlete?
Yeah, it can start really small from a person that gets in a car wreck or goes through cancer treatment. Kids that don't have any toys or don't have a father figure or a mother figure in their life at Christmas time to get toys and to experience a true Christmas of joy. Um, it's literally whatever that kind of pulls on your heart to give back or to start. I mean, it can be so small. And that's what's happened to me of certain times in my life of something that pulls at my heart and that kind of sparks me to get going with it and to help out
And
as
just
much
be
as
open
possible.
to it, right?
Just to be
Be
open
open
to
to
it.
it. It's easy to close it off sometimes, but if you're open to it, like it gets the ball rolling and then it becomes like infectious, right?
And you never know what's going to happen. It can happen at a coffee shop. It can happen on the golf course. It can happen anywhere in life. just to be open to it, like you said, and something's going to tug at your heart. And I think that's kind of the calling to get started and to pursue that.
I love it. So look, I appreciate how open you've been in this conversation. As you think about some of the things we've talked about, the role that giving has played, in your life, the impact it's had on you. What do you hope our listeners, take away as they reflect on this conversation, as they think about, success, impact, legacy? What advice or thoughts do you want them to take away, from this conversation?
They were all human beings. I mean, just what you see guys like myself on TV, doing the things we love to do, competing, like there's a life outside of that. And we're trying to find balance in our lives, trying to do the best we can of for me being a father, a husband, a role model to kids. Like there's always a balance, and whatever you find that fulfills your bucket, that fills your bucket, pursue that, because I've thought in my journey through golf that success on the golf course was going to be that deciding factor of how I was going to be happy, how I was going to be proud of my life. But it hasn't been that. And for everybody to find that avenue, to find that kind of side project, side gig that really fulfills their life, I think it's something that's been very impactful in my life, and something that excites me to get up every morning and do what I do. Is it's not really just for myself. Like I'm doing this for everybody else.
Harris, thank you for joining me today. And more importantly, thank you for the example you set, within the ropes, the way you conduct yourself outside, the impact you're having. Your story is powerful, and it's a reminder that success isn't just about the achievements, right? It's about how it positions us to create opportunities to impact others along the way. And that can evolve over time. But just a really powerful story. So thanks for being here with me today. And to our listeners, thanks for listening. If this episode resonated with you, I encourage you to share it with someone that inspires you or someone you'd like to inspire. Until next time, I'm Mike LaMena, and this is Great Aspirations. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Great Aspirations, presented by Wealthspire Advisors, a registered investment advisor and subsidiary company of NFP Corp. If you have feedback, including suggestions for future topics and guests, contact us at clientrelations@wealthspire.com.